The year is 1384, in the deep, dormant heart of a winter that has settled over the northern kingdoms like a heavy, woolen blanket. It is a time of stone and silence, a time when the world narrows down to the radius of the hearth fire, and the vast, gray skies press low against the earth. We find ourselves standing at the foot of the high keep, a formidable structure of gray limestone that has weathered 2 centuries of storms, now softened by a thick, pristine layer of snow. The snow has been falling for 3 days and 3 nights, a relentless, gentle descent of white that has erased the roads, smoothed the sharp edges of the battlements, and muffled the usual clamor of the castle courtyard into a profound, sacred hush. There is no wind tonight. The air is still, frozen in a crystal suspension of cold that bites at the nose but cleanses the lungs. Above, the clouds have finally parted, revealing a moon of polished silver that casts long, blue shadows across the courtyard. The only movement is the slow, rhythmic pacing of a single sentry on the wall, his boots crunching softly into the packed drift, a sound that dissipates instantly into the vast quietude of the night. But we are not staying in the cold. We are moving inward, past the heavy iron-bound gates, through the thick walls that radiate the chill of the earth, and up the winding stone stairwell that leads to the highest, most secluded chambers of the royal residence. Here, in the Queen's private apartments, the air changes. It shifts from the biting, metallic scent of snow and iron to something warmer, richer, and infinitely more soothing. It is the scent of dried lavender bundles crushed between fingers, the resinous aroma of pine logs slowly turning to charcoal, and the sweet, honeyed fragrance of beeswax candles burning steadily in their sconces. This is the domain of Queen Alara, a sanctuary of solitude designed not for the business of the realm, but for the preservation of warmth and the restoration of the spirit. Tonight, we explore the answer to a question whispered in the corridors of history. Why, in the depths of such a freezing winter, did the Queen sleep alone? It was not out of sorrow, nor estrangement. It was the ultimate luxury of the era. To sleep alone was to command space, to control the temperature, to own the silence. In a world where privacy was a forgotten concept, where servants slept on floor rushes and knights huddled together for warmth, the Queen's solitude was a fortress of peace. Let us observe the room. It is a large chamber, circular in shape, mirroring the tower in which it sits. The walls are lined with tapestries woven in the Low Countries, thick wool and silk depictions of pastoral scenes, green forests, grazing deer, and stillness that serve a dual purpose. They are beautiful to the eye, but more importantly, they are the insulation of the age. They hang 3 inches from the cold stone, creating a pocket of air that traps the warmth of the fire and prevents the chill from seeping into the room. If you were to press your hand against the tapestry, you would feel the rough warmth of the wool. If you were to slip your hand behind it, you would feel the ancient, radiating cold of the castle's skeleton. The floor is not bare stone, but covered in a thick layer of winter rushes, dried and sweet-smelling, woven into mats that soften every footfall. Over these mats lie furs, bearskins from the northern forests, wolf pelts, and thick sheepskins, layered so deeply that to walk across the room is to walk upon a cloud. There is no sound of footsteps here, only the soft shush of fabric dragging over fur. In the center of the far wall dominates the fireplace. It is a cavernous mouth of stone, carved with the roses of the royal house. Tonight, the fire has been built with the precision of an artisan. At the base, a bed of glowing red embers pulsing with a deep, steady heat. Above them, a lattice of oak and ash dense woods that burn slowly and long. The logs crackle intermittently, a sharp pop followed by the hiss of escaping sap, a sound that is hypnotic in its irregularity. The flames do not roar. They dance lazily, licking at the soot-blackened back of the hearth, casting flickering orange light that makes the shadows in the room breathe and sway. To the right of the fire sits the queen's chair. It is a masterpiece of carpentry, carved from dark walnut, with a high back that rises well above the head of anyone seated within it. This high back is not merely decorative. It acts as a screen, catching the heat of the fire and wrapping it around the occupant, while blocking any wayward drafts from the door. The seat is cushioned with velvet pillows filled with down feathers, soft and yielding. Beside the chair stands a small table, upon which rests a silver basin of rose water and a single, heavy book of hours, its leather cover worn smooth by the touch of fingers over decades. The queen is preparing for the long night. The ritual of the bedchamber is slow, deliberate, and steeped in the necessity of warmth. The shutters of the narrow windows have been closed tight. These are heavy wooden shutters bound with iron and fitted perfectly into the stone frames to seal out the winter air. Across the shutters, heavy velvet curtains in a deep crimson hue have been drawn, adding yet another layer of defense against the night. The world outside, the snow, the moon, the sentry, ceases to exist. There is only this room, this fire, and this silence. Let us look to the bed. It is the centerpiece of the room, a massive structure of oak that resembles a small house within the room. It stands on a raised dais, lifted away from the floor drafts. 4 thick posts, spiraled like spun sugar but dark as molasses, rise to support a heavy wooden canopy or tester. From this canopy hang curtains of heavy brocade, embroidered with gold thread that glitters faintly in the firelight. Tonight, the bed is an island of heat. The preparation of the bed is a task that occupied 2 chambermaids for the better part of an hour. First, the mattress, a thick tick filled with the finest goose down, shaken and pummeled until it lofted high, was laid upon the rope webbing. Over this, sheets of fine linen, warmed by a brass warming pan filled with hot coals. The warming pan was moved slowly, methodically, up and down the length of the sheets, ironing out the cold, leaving behind a toasted warmth that smells of clean flax and heat. Over the linen sheets, blankets of wool, dyed in saffron and madder, heavy and dense. And finally, the coverlet, a vast expanse of fur lined with silk, heavy enough to weigh down the sleeper, to press them into the softness of the mattress, creating a cocoon where the body's heat is perfectly preserved. The queen stands by the fire, allowing the heat to soak into her dressing gown. It is a robe of padded silk, quilted in diamond patterns, filled with wool batting. She extends her hands to the flames, rubbing them slowly together. The friction of skin on skin, the radiant heat on her palms, the feeling of the blood circulating to the fingertips. These are the small, significant sensations of the winter night. She moves to the small table and picks up a comb carved from bone. The sound of the comb passing through her hair is rhythmic and dull, swish, pull, swish, pull. It is a monotonous task, 100 strokes, a meditation that signals the end of the day's thinking. There is no need for conversation. Her ladies-in-waiting, two silent figures in the shadows, move about with practiced stealth. One bends to sweep a stray ember back into the hearth with a small broom of twigs. The sound is a soft scratch, scratch, scratch against the stone hearth. The other folds the discarded outer garments, smoothing the velvet, aligning the seams, placing them into a cedar chest with a soft thud of the lid. The queen approaches the bed. The curtains are parted slightly, revealing the inviting darkness of the sleeping space within. This is why she sleeps alone. To share this bed would be to introduce disruption, a turning body letting in a draft of cold air, a snore breaking the perfect silence, the tussle for the heavy covers. Here, in the center of the mattress, she creates her own climate. The heavy curtains will be drawn shut, enclosing her in a box of warmth, trapping her breath and body heat until the space inside the curtains becomes tropical compared to the stone room outside. She climbs the small wooden steps to the high bed. The mattress sinks deep under her weight, welcoming and silent. She slides between the warmed linen sheets. The sensation is exquisite, the immediate envelopment of heat that has been waiting for her. The roughness of the wool blankets on top of the sheet adds a comforting weight, a physical pressure that signals the muscles to release their tension. One of the ladies-in-waiting steps forward to the bedside. She holds a candle snuffer, a small cone of brass on a long handle. She moves around the room, extinguishing the candles one by one. The light dies in stages. First, the candle by the door puff, and a thin trail of gray smoke rises. Then the candle by the mirror puff. The room grows darker, the shadows lengthening and merging until the only light comes from the glowing hearth. The lady approaches the bed for the final task. She takes the heavy brocade curtains and pulls them closed. The rings slide over the wooden rod with a low, rolling rumble, rumble, click. The queen is now enclosed. The world is shut out completely. Inside the curtains, it is pitch black. The air is still and rapidly warming. The lady retreats. We hear her soft footsteps on the rushes moving away. The heavy door of the chamber opens with a low groan of well-oiled hinges, then closes with a solid, final thunk. The iron bolt is slid into place from the outside, or perhaps the inside, it matters not. The result is the same: security, isolation. Now we are left in the room. The queen is asleep or drifting there in her warm tent of linen and wool. We are left with the fire. The logs have settled. The flames have lowered to a steady, mesmerizing pulse of gold and red. The heat radiates outward, traversing the empty space, warming the empty chair, the stone floor, the silent tapestries. Listen closely to the room. The silence is not empty, it is textured. There is the faint, high-pitched whistle of the wind trying to find a gap in the stone walls and failing. There is the settling of the building itself, the thermal contraction of the great castle as the night temperature plummets, a deep, resonant creak from the timber beams high in the ceiling, occurring perhaps once every 10 minutes. Let us focus on the table near the fire. There is a goblet of silver left there, half filled with spiced wine. The surface of the wine is still, a dark mirror reflecting the dying embers. A small curl of steam rises from it, twisting in the air, thinning and vanishing. It is a slow process to watch. The steam rises, dances, and disappears. Rises, dances, and disappears. The heat from the fire dries the air in the room. You can smell the dust motes baking, a dry, clean scent that mixes with the wood smoke. The stone of the fireplace surround is hot to the touch. If you were to place your hand on the mantle, you would feel the absorbed energy of the oak logs, a stored warmth that will battle the cold long after the fire has died down. Outside, the snow continues to fall. It piles up against the bottom of the window shutters. It fills the crenellations of the castle walls. It covers the frozen moat. The world is being buried inch by inch in silence. But in here, there is only the slow consumption of fuel, the preservation of heat, and the heavy, dragging passage of time. The queen sleeps alone because sleep is a serious business in the winter. It is a preservation of life. It requires a stillness that cannot be shared. It requires a retreat so deep that the waking world is forgotten entirely. As the first hour of the night stretches into the second, the fire shifts. A log burns through the middle and collapses, crunch, hiss. A shower of sparks flies up the chimney, vanishing into the cold flue. The light flares up for a moment, illuminating the gold threads in the bed curtains, then settles back down to a deep red glow. The shadows in the corners of the room grow heavier, anchoring the space. We sit and watch the embers. We count the shades of red. There is the bright cherry red of the hottest center, the dull brick red of the cooling edges, the gray-white of the ash forming like a skin over the wood. It is a landscape of heat, constantly changing, yet always the same. The air in the room is heavy and still. It presses against the eyelids. The smell of lavender from the linens is faint now, overpowered by the comforting scent of wood smoke and beeswax. It is a soporific blend, a perfume designed for unconsciousness. The castle is a sleeping giant. Below us in the great hall the fires have been banked. In the stables, the horses are asleep in their stalls, their breath misting in the cold air. In the servants' quarters, the staff are huddled under rough blankets. But here, in the high tower, the queen floats in her warm, dark void, separated from the ice by stone and wood and velvet and fur. And so the night begins its long, slow march toward dawn. There is no rush. There is no urgency. There is only the snow falling outside and the fire burning inside. This is the way it has been for 100 winters and the way it will be for 100 more. The isolation is total. The peace is absolute. We wait, we breathe. We listen to the silence. The heavy oak door stands guard. The tapestries hold the heat. The rushes hold the scent of summer fields long gone. The room is a capsule of time, suspended in the cold, dark amber of the medieval winter. It is boring here, wonderfully, beautifully boring. Nothing happens, and that is the point. That is the luxury, to do nothing, to hear nothing, to simply be warm. The fire breathes in and out. The shadows stretch and retract. The night deepens. We are safe. We are warm. We are alone. The night deepens, settling into the heavy, motionless trench of the darker hours. In the Queen's chamber, the concept of time has dissolved into the rhythmic breathing of the fire and the slow, imperceptible consumption of the wax candle that stands in the far corner, a solitary sentinel against the absolute dark. We move our attention now from the warmth of the bed to the periphery of the room, to the spaces where the battle between the castle's stone bones and the fragile warmth of the hearth is fought in silence. The room is a container of stillness. The air, layered by heat, has stratified. Near the ceiling, where the heavy oak beams cross in a grid of shadows, the air is thick and warm, gathering in a pool that touches the painted timber. Lower down, near the floor where the rushes lie, a subtle current of cooler air moves like a slow stream. It creeps from the gap beneath the heavy door, a draft no thicker than a parchment sheet, winding its way through the stems of the dried herbs, seeking the fire. It is this invisible circulation that keeps the room alive, a slow inhalation and exhalation of the chamber itself. Outside the heavy oak door, in the corridor that encircles the tower, the temperature is vastly different. Here, the air is sharp, holding the distinct metallic tang of freezing stone. The corridor is narrow, curving gently to the left, following the architecture of the keep. The floor is bare stone, swept clean of dust, cold enough to numb bare feet in seconds. Along the wall, at intervals of 20 paces, iron sconces hold torches that have burned down to low, sputtering nubs. They cast erratic, dancing shadows against the rough-hewn limestone blocks that were cut and placed by hands long dead, glistening now with a faint sheen of condensation, where the warmer air of the interior meets the freezing masonry. Sitting on a small wooden stool near the queen's door is a page boy, the night watch of the chamber. He is wrapped in a heavy cloak of rough gray wool, scratchy and thick, pulled up over his ears. He is not asleep, but he is in a state of suspended wakefulness, a trance induced by the cold and the silence. His duty is singular and monotonous, to ensure that no sound disturbs the royal sleep, and to be ready should a bell ring from within. But the bell never rings. The queen sleeps. The boy stares at the stone floor, counting the irregularities in the flagstones. 1. A jagged crack shaped like a lightning bolt. 2. A darkened patch of granite. 3. The smooth, worn depression where generations of guards have pivoted on their heels. He shifts his weight, the wood of the stool creaking softly, a sound that seems loud in the quiet corridor. He pulls his hands into his sleeves, hugging his chest. He can see his own breath, faint puffs of white mist that appear rhythmically and vanish into the gloom. Exhale, mist, vanish. Exhale, mist, vanish. It is the only clock he has. Back inside the chamber, the fire requires tending. It is a delicate operation, performed not by the boy outside, but by the senior lady-in-waiting who sleeps on a trundle bed in the antechamber, a small alcove separated from the main room by a heavy velvet curtain. She wakes not by an alarm, but by the instinct of 1,000 nights. She knows the rhythm of the logs. She knows, by the quality of the silence, that the heat is dipping. She rises. Her movement is soundless, a ghost in a white linen shift over which she throws a heavy woolen shawl. She steps into the main chamber. The transition is subtle, a slight increase in warmth, a thickening of the air. She moves across the rushes. Her feet know the path instinctively, avoid the creaking board near the window, step over the knot in the rug. She approaches the hearth. The fire has settled into a bed of pulsing crimson coals, covered by a lattice of white ash. It is hot, but the flames have died down and the light in the room has dimmed to a deep, ruddy twilight. The lady kneels on the stone hearth, the heat radiating against her face, flushing her skin. She reaches for the iron tongs. They are heavy, cold iron, blackened by years of service. She selects a log from the stack. The wood is seasoned oak, dried for 3 years in the castle barns until it is hard as bone. It has a rough, furrowed bark that feels dry and brittle under her fingertips. She lifts it. It is dense, heavy with potential energy. She does not throw it. She places it. With the precision of a jeweler setting a stone, she lowers the log onto the bed of coals. She positions it at an angle, bridging the 2 remaining embers, ensuring that air can flow underneath to feed the combustion. She waits. She does not leave yet. She watches. For a long minute, nothing happens. The log sits dark and cold against the red heat. Then a small curl of smoke, gray and oily, begins to rise from the bottom of the bark. It twists up the chimney. Then a crack snaps sharp and sudden. A tiny tongue of blue flame licks up the side of the wood. It grows, turning yellow, then orange, latching onto the dry bark. The fire accepts the offering. The light in the room brightens imperceptibly, the shadows shifting their angles on the walls. The lady nods, satisfied. She places the tongs back on their stand, metal on metal, a soft clink, and retreats into the shadows, returning to her own rest. The cycle continues. Let us drift now to the window, to the boundary between the sanctuary and the storm. The shutters are closed, barred with an iron arm. But let us imagine we can see through the wood, or perhaps we slip through a crack in the joinery like a draft. Outside, the world has been simplified to white and black. The snow has not stopped. It falls in heavy, wet flakes, the kind that cling and stack. On the stone ledge of the window, outside the glassless opening, the snow has piled up in a drift that is now 6 inches deep. It curves up against the wood of the shutter, a soft, white dampener. This layer of snow acts as extra insulation, sealing the cracks, muffling the wind. The castle is being wrapped in a blanket of ice. Down in the courtyard, the scene is one of monochromatic stillness. The well in the center of the bailey is capped with a mound of snow. The wooden buckets left out are filled with white cones. The stables, a long, low building against the far wall, are dark, but warmth bleeds from them. If you were standing there, you would smell the rich, earthy scent of damp hay and horses, a stark contrast to the sterile, freezing air of the open yard. A cat, the castle's mouser, makes its way across the courtyard. It steps high, shaking each paw as it sinks into the fresh powder. It moves with purpose, hugging the wall where the overhanging eaves provide a narrow strip of shelter. It disappears into the buttery, seeking the warmth of the ovens that are never fully allowed to go cold. Back in the Queen's Tower, the room is filled with objects that absorb and reflect the quiet. Let us catalog them, for in their stillness lies the essence of the night. On the wall hangs a mirror of polished silver, slightly tarnished at the edges. It is a dark pool, reflecting the firelight in a distorted, hazy glow. It captures the room in reverse, the bed, the chair, the fire, holding them in a silent silver suspension. Beside it, a tapestry depicts a hunting scene, a stag frozen mid-leap, a hound forever baying in silence. The threads of the tapestry are wool and silk, dyed with woad and weld. In the dim light, the colors are muted, dark greens, browns, and faint ochres. The fabric absorbs the sound of the fire, deadening the acoustics of the stone room. There is a chest at the foot of the bed. It is made of cedar bound with straps of iron. Inside, folded with obsessive neatness, are the queen's linens, layer upon layer of white cloth dried with lavender. They sit there in the dark, waiting. The scent of the cedar permeates the wood, a sharp, clean smell that wards off moths and decay. The chest is heavy, solid, a permanent fixture that grounds the room. On the small table, the Book of Hours remains open. The vellum pages are stiff and creamy. The ink, made from oak galls and iron salts, is black and crisp. The illuminations, tiny paintings of saints and angels, glitter faintly with real gold leaf. Even in the dark, the gold catches the firelight, tiny sparks of divinity in the gloom. The book waits for the dawn, for the next prayer, for the next turning of the page. But for now, it rests. The atmosphere is thick with the specific boredom of safety. There is no threat here. The walls are 6 feet thick. The doors are barred. The guards are awake. The queen is asleep. There is nothing to do but exist. This boredom is a luxury. In a world of famine, war, and disease, to be bored is to be blessed. To sit in a warm room and watch a log burn is the height of privilege. We listen again. The wind has shifted. It is now blowing from the north, a lower, deeper moan that buffers against the stone walls. Woo-woo, woo-woo. It sounds distant, like the ocean, a reminder of the vast, inhospitable wilderness that surrounds this island of warmth. The contrast makes the fire seem brighter, the bed softer. Inside the bed curtains, the temperature is perfect. The queen's breathing is slow and regular. The heavy fur coverlet presses down, a comforting weight that mimics a hug. The air inside the canopy is humid and warm, scented with the dried herbs stuffed into the mattress ticking, woodruff, sweet clover, and lady's bedstraw. It is a scent of summer meadows preserved for the winter night. Let us focus on the texture of the silence again. It is not just the absence of noise, it is a physical weight. The stone walls dampen vibration. The snow outside dampens vibration. The tapestries dampen vibration. The room is an acoustical void. If you were to drop a pin, the sound would be swallowed instantly by the rushes. This silence is the true treasure of the queen. In the daytime, her life is a cacophony of petitions, court gossip, clashing metal, and barking dogs. Now there is only the hiss of the sap and the thump of her own heart. The night stretches out. We are perhaps 3 hours past midnight. This is the dead of night, the time when the medieval world believed the barrier between the physical and the spiritual was thinnest. But here, there are no spirits, only the physical reality of heat and cold. The fire tender in the antechamber shifts in her sleep. She dreams of summer, of bees in the castle garden. Her breathing changes pitch slightly, a soft snore that lasts for 3 breaths and then stops. The room returns to absolute quiet. In the corner, a spider, small and insignificant, lowers itself on a single thread of silk from the ceiling beam. It descends slowly, spinning in the updraft from the fire. It reaches the level of the mantelpiece and stops, suspended in the amber air. It waits. It too is part of the stillness. It does not hunt. It simply hangs there, a tiny speck of life in the vast stone cavern. The candle by the door has burned low. The wax has pooled in the saucer, liquid and translucent. The wick is long and curved, topped with a mushroom of carbon. The flame is small now, a blue bead with a yellow tip. It struggles against the drowning wax. It flickers once, twice. Then, with a tiny wisp of smoke, it goes out. The room is plunged into a deeper darkness, relieved only by the hearth. The shadows leap forward, claiming the corners of the room. The transition is gentle. The darkness is soft, like velvet. We are left with the red glow. It paints the room in shades of copper and bronze. The gold threads in the bed curtains dull to a rusty brown. The silver mirror goes black. The world shrinks further, focusing entirely on the hearth. The log that was added earlier is now fully engaged. It burns steadily with a low, comforting rumble. Rum, 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 rum. It is a sound of consumption, of energy release. The heat travels across the floor, warming the legs of the table, the side of the chest, the edge of the rug. We settle in. We are not going anywhere. There is no need to move. The snow falls, the fire burns, the queen sleeps, the castle stands. The repetition is the point. The monotony is the medicine. We watch the flames dance. They separate and rejoin, separate and rejoin. Blue at the base, yellow in the middle, orange at the tip. They are hypnotic, a chaotic pattern that never repeats but always looks the same. The air is dry. We can feel it in our throats. We imagine taking a sip of the spiced wine, but we do not. It sits there, cool and dark. The steam has stopped rising. It has reached equilibrium with the room. Everything is seeking equilibrium. The stone walls are slowly, infinitely slowly, absorbing the cold from outside. But the fire fights back. It is a stalemate of thermodynamics, a silent war of degrees. And in the center of the battlefield, the queen lies warm and oblivious. The page boy in the hall stands up. He stretches his legs. He walks 5 paces to the left. He walks 5 paces to the right. He sits back down. The leather of his shoes squeaks faintly. Squeak, squeak. He pulls his cloak tighter. He closes his eyes for a moment, listening to the wind. He is bored. He is cold. He is doing his job perfectly. And so the night rolls on, a vast, slow wheel turning in the dark sky. The stars wheel overhead, unseen behind the clouds. The earth spins, and we remain here, anchored in the stone, wrapped in the wool, watching the fire. The details are infinite if you look close enough. The grain of the oak floorboards, worn smooth by centuries of feet. The dust collecting on the top of the door frame. The soot staining the back of the fireplace in layers of black and gray. Each detail is a testament to time, to the slow, grinding passage of history. We are safe here. Nothing can touch us. The winter can howl and rage, but it cannot enter. We are sealed in a box of stone and silk. We wait for the next log. We wait for the dawn, but the dawn is hours away, years away. For now there is only the night, the long, deep, boring, beautiful night. The castle is a ship of stone navigating a sea of winter darkness. In the queen's chamber, the silence has deepened, taken on a texture as thick as the velvet drapes that shroud the windows. It is the hour of the wolf, the deepest trough of the night, when the human spirit is said to be most tethered to the quiet earth. The fire, our constant companion and the beating heart of this room, has undergone a subtle transformation. The sharp, lively flames of the earlier evening have mellowed into a profound, intense radiance. The logs have broken down into a landscape of glowing charcoal, a terrain of pulsing, breathing red heat that emits a low, steady thrumming sound. Thrum, thrum. We are seated invisibly in the corner, observers of the microscopic. Let us look at the floor. The rushes, strewn with herbs, are not merely a carpet. They are a botanical history of the previous summer. Here, a dried stalk of meadowsweet, its creamy flowers now brown and brittle. There, a stem of lavender, its purple buds tight and hard like tiny pebbles. When the heat from the fire rolls across the floor, it warms these dried plants, releasing a ghost of their scent. It is faint, dusty, and sweet. The smell of a sun-baked field in July, preserved in the freezing heart of January. The queen, deep within the curtained fortress of her bed, shifts. The movement is muffled by layers of down and wool, a soft rustle like wind through dry leaves. She does not wake. Her sleep is heavy, a hibernation mandated by the season. In this era, sleep is segmented. This is the first sleep, the deep, restorative unconsciousness that claims the body for the first 4 hours of the night. Soon, she might wake for a period of quiet contemplation, the watch, before descending into the second sleep. But for now, she is submerged. Let us examine the air itself. It is visible in the firelight. Dust motes, tiny particles of fabric, skin, and ash float in the thermal currents. They rise slowly above the hearth, catch the updraft, swirl near the mantel, and then drift down in slow, lazy spirals as they cool. It is a silent ballet of matter, a microscopic weather system contained entirely within the room. Up, swirl, down. Up, swirl, down. Watching it is mesmerizing. It slows the pulse. On the bedside table, the silver basin of rosewater has grown still and cold. The water is a perfect disk of black reflection. If a single speck of dust were to land on it, ripples would spread outward, microscopic waves crashing against the silver shores of the bowl. But the air is so still that the surface remains glass-like. The silver itself is cool, condensing the moisture in the air. A tiny bead of water forms on the rim, grows heavy, and slides down the side, slip, leaving a faint trail before vanishing into the wood of the table. The castle walls breathe. The limestone is porous. Though 6 feet thick, it is not hermetic. It inhales the moisture of the snow and exhales the dampness of the earth. In the corners of the room, far from the fire, the air is noticeably sharper. Here, the shadows are dense, pooling like black ink. In these shadows, the wooden furniture stands like dormant beasts. The tall wardrobe, carved with scenes of biblical judgment, looms in the dark. Its doors are shut tight, but inside, the furs and silks hang in silent rows, smelling of cedar and old air. Let us move our attention to the door. The heavy iron latch is a marvel of medieval engineering. It is a simple drop-bar mechanism, forged by a blacksmith whose name is lost to time. The metal is pitted and scarred, showing the marks of the hammer. It is cold, radiating a chill that you can feel from inches away. The wood around the latch is dark, stained by the oils of 1,000 hands that have lifted it. The door itself is oak, planks 3 inches thick, held together by iron straps. It fits the frame imperfectly, a deliberate choice to allow the wood to expand in summer humidity and contract in winter dry. Right now, it has contracted. There is that thin gap at the bottom, the highway for the draft. We follow the draft. It flows across the floor, a river of cold air. It hits the dais of the bed and splits, flowing around it. It reaches the hearth and is sucked in, feeding the fire. This constant replacement of air keeps the room fresh, preventing the carbon monoxide from the charcoal from becoming lethal. It is a delicate balance. Enough ventilation to live, enough insulation to stay warm. Outside, the snow has changed. The heavy, wet flakes have stopped. The temperature has dropped further, turning the snow into fine, dry powder. The wind picks it up and swirls it against the stone. Hiss, scratch, hiss, scratch. It sounds like sand being thrown against the wall. The sound is erratic, dependent on the gusts. Sometimes there is silence for a minute, then scratch. It is a reminder of the chaotic energy outside, contrasting with the ordered calm inside. The night watchman in the corridor has stood up again. He is pacing to keep his blood moving. Step, clack, step, clack. His boots have iron hobnails on the soles for grip, and they click against the stone. The sound echoes down the curved hallway, a lonely, percussive rhythm. He stops at the narrow, arrow-slit window in the corridor. There is no glass here, only a wooden shutter which he opens a crack. A blast of freezing air hits his face, shocking him awake. He looks out. The world is blue-gray. The moon is hidden, but the snow reflects the ambient starlight, creating a ghostly luminescence. The forest beyond the castle walls is a black mass, silent and impenetrable. He closes the shutter, bang, and latches it. He rubs his face, the skin tingling from the cold bite. He returns to his stool. Creak. Back in the chamber, the fire needs attention again. The red landscape of coals is slowly turning to gray ash. The heat output is dropping. The lady-in-waiting in the antechamber stirs. She knows. She rises again, her movements automatic. She enters the room. This time she does not add a log immediately. She takes a poker, a long iron rod, and disturbs the bed of coals. Crunch, scrape. She breaks the gray crust of ash, revealing the glowing red heart underneath. Sparks fly up, a sudden miniature firework display that illuminates her face in a flash of orange. The heat surges, released from its ash prison. Now she adds the fuel. Not a large log this time, but a faggot, a bundle of smaller sticks, birch and hazel, tied together with twine. These catch quickly. She places the bundle on the revived coals. The dry twigs crackle instantly, snap, crackle, pop. The sound is sharper, louder than the slow burn of the oak. Yellow flames leap up, eager and bright. They cast dancing shadows that reach the ceiling, making the painted beams appear to writhe. The sudden light does not wake the queen. The heavy curtains of the bed block it all. She remains in her dark cocoon. The lady watches the bundle catch, ensuring it won't roll out. The smell of burning birch bark fills the room, a sharper, sweeter smell than the oak, with a hint of tar. Satisfied, she retreats. The room settles into a new rhythm. The crackling of the twigs is busy, energetic. Click, 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 hiss. But it is short-lived. The twigs burn down to coals, and the room returns to the slow, deep burn of the oak log beneath. The shadows slow their dance. The silence returns, heavier than before. We look at the tapestry on the left wall. It depicts a garden in spring. Ladies in high headdresses sit on a lawn of flowers playing lutes. A fountain sprays water in the background. It is a window into a different season, a promise that winter is not eternal. The colors are faded. The green of the grass is more like olive, the blue of the sky a slate gray. But in the firelight, the figures seem to move slightly, as if the ladies are breathing, as if the water is flowing. It is a trick of the light, a hallucination of boredom and fatigue. Let us think about the logistics of this warmth. The wood burning in the hearth was cut 3 winters ago. It was hauled by oxen on a sledge over frozen mud. It was stacked by men with calloused hands who blew on their fingers to keep them warm. It was seasoned in a shed where owls nested in the rafters. Every calorie of heat releasing into this room now is the result of years of planning and labor. The Queen's warmth is the end product of a vast, invisible industrial chain. To be warm is to command the resources of the land. The heat warms the stone of the fireplace surround. It travels up the chimney breast. If you were on the roof, standing by the chimney pot, you would feel a column of warm air rising into the night, carrying the smell of the royal bedchamber out to the stars. Inside the room, the temperature is stratified but comfortable. It is perhaps 60 degrees Fahrenheit near the fire, 50 near the bed, 40 near the walls. By modern standards, it is chilly. By medieval standards, it is a tropical paradise. The Queen, under her furs, is in a microclimate of 80 degrees. The candle in the antechamber has burned out. The lady-in-waiting sleeps in darkness now, buried under her own pile of blankets. Her breathing is soft and rhythmic. The castle is a hive of sleeping souls, each in their own cell, separated by stone, united by the cold. We notice a small movement on the floor. A beetle, black and shiny, crawls out from under the wood basket. It moves slowly, exploring the terrain of the flagstones. It encounters a rush stem and navigates around it. It is a slow, ponderous journey. It reaches the edge of the hearth warmth and stops, basking. It is a tiny beneficiary of the royal fire. The wind outside dies down. The silence becomes absolute. No scratching snow, no creaking beams, just the hiss of the fire. This is the deep silence. It feels heavy, pressing against the ears. It is a silence so profound you can hear the blood pumping in your own ears. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. We sit in the chair by the fire. The velvet cushion is still warm from the radiant heat. We look into the embers. We see shapes, a castle, a dragon, a face. They form and dissolve as the ash shifts. It is a primitive television, the oldest entertainment of humanity, staring at the fire. The spiced wine in the goblet has formed a skin on top, a thin film of separation. The steam is gone. The liquid is stagnant. It waits. Time is viscous here. Minutes stretch into hours. There is no clock ticking. The only measure is the consumption of the wood. The log is half gone. That means perhaps an hour has passed, or 2. It doesn't matter. The night is long. The Queen sighs in her sleep, a long exhaling breath. Ha-ha-ha. It is a sound of contentment, of total safety. The bed creaks faintly as she turns over. The ropes of the bed frame stretch and settle, creak, groan, then silence again. We are bored, the story is static, and that is the victory. In a world of violence and uncertainty, a night where nothing happens is a triumph. We are witnessing the successful defense of peace. The walls held, the food lasted, the fire burned, the Queen slept. It is a hypnotic repetition of survival. The shadows on the ceiling look like the ribs of a giant beast. The room is the belly of the whale. We are safe inside. We watch the smoke go up the chimney, gray wisps disappearing into the black throat of the flue, up and out, up and out. And the snow lies heavy on the roof, a white weight pressing down. And the stones hold the cold, and the fire holds the heat. And we are here in the middle, suspended in the boring, cozy, beautiful dark. The night has now advanced into the quiet territory known as the Dead Watch, that nameless stretch of hours that lies equidistant between midnight and dawn. In the Queen's chamber, the world has contracted further. The fire, having devoured the faggot of birch twigs, has returned to a sullen, steadfast burn. The large oak log is now a glowing ruin, a charred skeleton pulsing with a deep, volcanic orange. The light in the room is low, a murky, reddish gloom that barely reaches the corners where the tapestries hang. The air in the room has grown heavier, seasoned by hours of wood smoke and the faint, waxen scent of the extinguished candles. It is a thick, sleepy atmosphere, the kind that seems to slow down thought and movement. If you were to walk through it, you would feel as though you were wading through warm water. Let us focus on the window embrasure. This is the deepest part of the wall, a tunnel of stone nearly 6 feet deep, leading to the shuttered opening. The stone here is noticeably colder. Condensation has formed on the masonry, tiny droplets of water that glisten like sweat in the faint light. They do not run. They hang suspended, frozen in the act of falling. In the corner of the sill, a small draft has managed to penetrate the shutter's joinery. It has created a tiny, magnificent structure, a frost fern growing across the stone. It is white, crystalline, and infinitely complex, a fractal of ice blooming in the dark. It grows silently, molecule by molecule, a testament to the conquering cold outside. Outside, the landscape has changed again. The clouds, having unburdened themselves of snow, are beginning to break. Gaps appear in the gray canopy, revealing the raw, infinite black of the cosmos. Stars appear, hard and bright as diamonds. They do not twinkle, they stare. The moon, now high and clear, floods the snow-covered world with a spectral blue light. The castle courtyard is transformed into a landscape of blue shadows and blinding white highlights. The shadow of the well is a sharp, black ellipse on the snow. The shadow of the tower we are in stretches long and distorted across the bailey, reaching the far wall. The silence outside is brittle. The snow has stopped acting as a cushion and has frozen hard. If a twig were to snap in the forest now, it would sound like a gunshot. But nothing snaps. The world is paralyzed by the frost. Back inside, the Queen enters a new phase of sleep. She has passed through the initial deep slumber and is now in a lighter, drifting state. She moves more frequently. A hand emerges from the furs, pale and relaxed, resting on the velvet coverlet. The fingers curl slightly, grasping at nothing. The air inside the bed curtains is now fully saturated with her warmth. It is a pocket of tropical heat. The smell of the lavender-stuffed pillows is activated by the heat. A dry, floral scent that mingles with the smell of warm linen. In the antechamber, the fire tender wakes. It is not a scheduled waking, it is the bladder's demand. She rises, groggy and slow, wrapping her shawl tight. She uses the chamber pot, the sound of the ceramic lid clinking softly, clink, a domestic sound that grounds the scene in reality. She shivers. The antechamber is colder than the main room. She decides to check the main fire while she is up. She pads into the queen's chamber. The floor rushes are cool under her feet. She approaches the hearth. The heat is still good, radiating out in waves, but the fuel is low. She does not add a log this time. Instead, she takes the poker and banks the fire. She rakes the ashes over the glowing coals, creating a mound. This will slow the burn rate, preserving the heat in the core of the embers until morning. It is a technique of conservation. The light in the room dims significantly as the red glow is buried under the gray ash. Now the room is almost pitch black. Only a faint, dull red outline marks the location of the fire. She returns to her bed. Rustle sigh, silence returns. Now we are left in near total darkness. The visual details are gone. We are left with sound and sensation. Listen. The wind has died completely. The silence is no longer a pressure, it is a void. But in this void the castle speaks. Creak, a floorboard settles near the wardrobe. Tick. A stone in the fireplace cools and contracts. Drip. A single drop of condensation falls in the window embrasure. And then a new sound from deep within the walls. Scritch, scratch, scritch, scratch. It is a mouse. It is moving behind the wainscoting, navigating the secret tunnels of the castle. It is busy, urgent, searching for a crumb, a seed, a bit of leather to chew. Its tiny claws on the stone are the loudest thing in the world. It pauses. Silence. It continues. Scritch, scratch. It is a companion in the lonely night, a reminder that life persists in the cracks. The queen does not hear it. She is dreaming. In her dream, it is summer. She is walking in the orchard. The sun is hot on her face. The air smells of ripe pears. She reaches up to pick a fruit and the juice runs down her hand. It is a warm, sticky dream, a stark contrast to the frozen reality of the room. Her breathing speeds up slightly, in out, then slows again as the dream fades, dissolved by the deep comfort of the bed. Let us contemplate the darkness. It is not empty, it is textured. It feels soft, like black velvet pressed against the eyes. It is restful. The eyes, strained by sunlight and candle glare, relax completely. The mind, deprived of visual input, begins to turn inward or simply to shut down. This is the velvet dark of the pre-industrial night, a darkness that modern people rarely experience. It is absolute. If you held your hand in front of your face, you would not see it. You would only feel the warmth of your own palm. The temperature in the room continues its slow, inevitable decline. The heat from the fire is still there, but it is fighting a losing battle against the thermal mass of the stone walls. The cold is seeping in inch by inch. It creeps across the floor. It chills the tapestries. It stiffens the leather of the book on the table. But the bed remains a fortress. The layers of wool, fur, and linen, combined with the heavy curtains, create a thermal lag that will outlast the night. The queen is safe. Let us move to the wardrobe. The heavy oak doors are locked. Inside, the queen's gowns hang in the dark. Velvet, silk, brocade. They are heavy with gold thread and pearls. They are stiff with embroidery. In the darkness, they seem to hold the shape of the body, ghost-like shells waiting to be inhabited. The smell of cedar is strong here. It is a sharp, clean smell. On the floor of the wardrobe, a pair of leather shoes sit side by side. They are lined with rabbit fur. They are shaped to the queen's feet. They sit there, toes pointing out, waiting for the morning walk. The page boy in the corridor has fallen asleep. He couldn't help it. He is young and the boredom was too strong. He sits on his stool back leaning against the cold stone wall, head lolling on his chest. His mouth is slightly open, soft snore, soft snore. He is dreaming of a hot meat pie. The torch above him has burned down to the last inch. The flame is guttering, flashing wildly, flare, dim, casting frantic shadows that dance over the sleeping boy. Then with a final hiss, the torch dies. The corridor is plunged into darkness. Now the boy sleeps in the true dark, wrapped in his gray cloak, a small bundle of life in the stone intestine of the castle. Back in the room, the silence is broken by a sound from outside. Far away in the distant forest, a wolf howls. Ow-woo-woo-woo. It is a high, lonely sound, thin and reedy. It carries for miles over the hard crust of the snow. It is not a threat, it is a statement of existence. I am here. The winter is mine. The sound penetrates the shutter, the glass, the curtain. It reaches the room as a faint, ghostly echo. It adds a layer of depth to the silence. It makes the safety of the room feel even more precious. We are in here. The wolf is out there. That is the order of things. The queen turns again. She murmurs something unintelligible. Blue, perhaps, or no. It is a fragment of a dream bubbling to the surface. She pulls the furs tighter around her shoulder. The movement creates a small gap in the bedding, and for a second the cooler air of the room touches her neck. She shivers immediately, instinctively, and burrows deeper. The gap closes. The warmth is restored. We sit in the dark and wait. There is a sense of timelessness. This moment could be happening in 1384 or 1084 or 884. The technology of warmth, fire, fur, wool, stone, remains the same. The experience of the winter night is a human constant. We focus on the smell of the room again. The fire has shifted to a smell of wood ash, a dry, powdery mineral scent. The beeswax smell has faded. The lavender is faint. The primary smell now is the room itself, dust, old wood, limestone. It is the smell of antiquity. Let us count the layers of protection again. The queen's skin. The linen shift. The linen sheets. The wool blankets. The fur coverlet. The bed curtains. The room air. The tapestries. The stone walls. The night. 10 layers between the consciousness and the void. It is a nesting doll of safety. The hours drag on. The dead watch is living up to its name. Nothing happens. The mouse has stopped scratching. The floorboards have finished settling. The condensation has frozen. The room is in stasis. It is boring. It is beautifully, wonderfully boring. The mind has nothing to latch onto. No phone, no light, no book, no conversation. Only the sensation of being. We drift, we float in the dark. We imagine the kitchen fire starting up in a few hours, the baker arriving to knead the dough, the clank of pans, but that is the future. That is not now. Now is only the dark. We check the fire one last time in our mind's eye. The mound of ash is gray and smooth, but if you were to blow on it, whoosh, you would see the angry red eye of the coal underneath. It is sleeping just like the queen. It is hoarding its energy. The room is a vault, a bank vault of silence. The snow outside reflects the moonlight, creating a false dawn. But true dawn is still far off. The air is still. The world is stopped. We are safe. We are warm. We are alone. And the wolf howls again, further away this time, a fading memory of sound. Silence returns, total, absolute, heavy. The queen sleeps on. The night holds her. The castle drifts in the vast, amniotic silence of the pre-dawn hours. We have now entered the third watch, the time when the night is at its absolute coldest, the nadir of the thermal cycle. The stones of the keep, having radiated their stored summer heat into the greedy air for hours, are now truly cold to the touch. In the queen's chamber, the temperature has dropped to its lowest point. The air is crisp, almost brittle. If you were to inhale sharply through your nose, you would feel the dryness in your sinuses, a subtle sting that speaks of the winter outside. The fire is a dormant beast. The mound of ash banked by the lady-in-waiting has done its work. It looks like a gray, lifeless hillock in the grate, but a faint, wavering distortion in the air above it reveals the heat still rising, fighting the chill that descends from the chimney. The room is no longer illuminated by the glow. It is swathed in a darkness, so complete it feels like a heavy fluid filling every crevice, pressing against the eardrums. Let us explore the sensation of touch in this darkness. The velvet of the queen's chair now cool, the wood of the table smooth and cold as glass, the iron of the door latch biting and hostile. But then the bed. The bed is the anomaly. It is a radiator. The queen has moved into the deepest phase of her second sleep. She lies on her side, curled into a loose fetal position, a primal shape of heat conservation. Her breathing is shallow and slow, a rhythmic hiss-pause that is the only clock in the room. Under the heavy covers, the temperature is steady. The down mattress has molded to her shape, creating a custom-fitted nest that supports every limb, every joint. There is no pressure point, no discomfort to trigger a waking signal. Let us focus on the linen sheet near her face. It is smooth, worn soft by years of laundering. It smells faintly of the orris root used in the washing water. Where her breath hits the fabric, it is warm and slightly damp. Where it is exposed to the room air, it is cool. This boundary, the line between the warm breath and the cool room, is where the sensation of cozy lives. It is the contrast that defines the comfort. Outside, the moon has set. The false dawn of the moonlight has vanished, plunging the world into the black hour before the true sunrise. The sky is a solid, impenetrable onyx. The stars are obscured by a new layer of high, thin clouds that have drifted in from the west, invisible but present, blocking the starlight. The darkness outside is identical to the darkness inside. The window is no longer a frame of blue-gray. It is just another black rectangle in a black wall. The silence is interrupted by the natural contractions of the winter world. Outside in the courtyard, a tree limb, frozen through to its core, snaps under the weight of the snow. Crack. The sound is explosive, like a pistol shot. It echoes off the stone walls of the bailey, crack, hack, 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 and then is swallowed instantly by the snow. Inside the room, the sound registers only as a dull thud, muffled by the stone and the tapestries. The queen does not stir, but in the antechamber, the lady-in-waiting shifts. The sound has penetrated her lighter sleep. She mumbles, turns over, and pulls her blanket up over her ear. The castle absorbs the noise and returns to silence. Let us drift down to the floor level again. The cold air has settled here. A dense layer maybe 6 inches deep. It is a physical presence. The rushes are cold. If a flea were navigating this jungle of dried stems, it would be moving sluggishly, its metabolism slowed by the drop in temperature. The draft from under the door has strengthened slightly as the temperature differential between the corridor and the room increases. It is a relentless, seeking current of air. It flows towards the fireplace, drawn by the updraft of the chimney. We follow the draft into the fireplace. It moves over the stone hearth, swirls around the andirons, and is sucked up the flue. High up in the chimney, the air mixes with the smoke and heat, rising into the night. It is an invisible river, flowing constantly, silently, emptying the room of its stale air and pulling in the fresh. On the table, the Book of Hours lies shut. The leather binding is contracting in the dry cold. Creak. A tiny sound barely audible. The gold leaf on the pages inside is dark, waiting for the light to reanimate it. The words Latin prayers written in a steady Gothic hand are sleeping. Domine labia me aperis. Lord, open my lips. They wait to be spoken. The queen's hand twitches. A finger moves, brushing against the fur of the coverlet. The sensation of soft fur against smooth skin. It is a tactile luxury. In a world of rough wool, scratchy straw, and hard wood, the softness of fur and silk is a powerful marker of status. It is a comfort that money can buy. Let us imagine the layers of the castle around us. Below this floor is the king's chamber. It is empty. The king is away on a campaign in the south, or perhaps hunting in the royal forest, or simply sleeping in his own separate tower. The separation of the king and queen is geographic as well as architectural. They lead parallel lives that intersect only for ceremony and duty. This solitude is her norm. It is her space. Below the king's chamber are the guest quarters, empty now save for the dust. Below that the great hall, vast, echoing, cold. The embers in the central hearth there are dead. The trestle tables are stacked against the walls. The hounds are sleeping in a heap near the pantry door, a tangle of limbs and fur, twitching and whimpering in their dreams of the chase. And below that the cellars, barrels of wine, sacks of grain, wheels of cheese. They sit in the cool dark, the fuel for the castle's life. And outside, the guards. The poor sentry on the wall is suffering now. The cold has seeped through his cloak, through his leather jerkin, into his bones. He stamps his feet. Thump, thump. He blows into his hands. Whoosh, whoosh. He curses softly. He looks to the east, praying for a line of gray light, but there is none, only black. Back in the warm tower, the boredom is exquisite. There is absolutely nothing to do. The mind is free to wander or to empty itself completely. It is a form of meditation. The absence of stimulation is the ultimate relaxation. We watch the dust motes again. They are fewer now as the air currents have slowed. They hang almost motionless. The room is a still life painting. Queen sleeping in winter. Let us look at the ceiling beams. They are oak, dark with age and smoke. They are massive, spanning 20 feet. They were trees when the Romans left this land. They have seen centuries of sleepers. They have absorbed the smoke of a million fires. They are the silent witnesses. In the grain of the wood, if you looked with a microscope, you would see the history of the forest. Years of drought, years of rain, years of fire. The queen rolls onto her back. Her face is turned towards the canopy. Her eyes move rapidly under the lid's REM sleep. She is in the vivid part of the night. She dreams of a tapestry coming to life. The stag leaps out of the fabric and trots around the room. The hound follows, barking silently. The woven trees rustle. It is a fantastical, impossible dream, fueled by the silence and the sensory deprivation of the room. The fire gives a sudden pop. A pocket of gas in the charcoal releases. A tiny blue flame flickers for a second, then dies. The sound is startling in the quiet, but the queen sleeps on. We are entering the gray hour, the time when the body's temperature is lowest, when the spirit is weakest. It is the time when old people die in their sleep, but the queen is young and strong. For her, this is just the deepest rest. The air in the room smells flat. The oxygen has been breathed and re-breathed. It is time for the morning refresh, but that is hours away. For now, the stale, warm air is a comfort. It smells of humanity, of life. We notice a spider web in the high corner of the room near the ceiling beam. It is old and dusty. The spider is long gone. The web sways gently in the thermal current. It is a delicate gray lace. It catches the tiny amount of light from the embers and holds it, a gray ghost in the corner. The heavy velvet curtains at the window are motionless. They are thick, lined with wool batting. They are the barrier against the world. Behind them, the frost fern on the stone sill has stopped growing. It has reached its maximum size. It sits there, a perfect sculpture of ice, waiting to be destroyed by the morning sun. The floorboards creak again. Grrrreek. The castle is settling. It is a living thing, expanding and contracting. It groans in its sleep. The page boy in the hall is awake now. He has been startled by the snapping branch outside. He is alert, eyes wide in the dark. He listens. He hears the wind picking up again, a low moan. Woo-woo. It sounds mournful. He wraps his arms around his knees. He wishes he was in the kitchen near the ovens. But he is here guarding the silence. He is the keeper of the quiet. In the queen's chamber, the sense of isolation is profound. We are cut off from the world. There is no news, no messages, no demands. We are in a capsule of time. This is the appeal of the winter night. It is a pause button on life. We sit and wait. We breathe in time with the queen. In, out, in, out. It is hypnotic, the rhythm of life. The embers in the hearth are fading to a dull, bruised purple. The heat output is dropping. The room is cooling, but the bed is still warm. The bed is the victory. We think about the sheep that provided the wool, the geese that provided the down, the bears that provided the fur, the trees that provided the wood. The entire natural world has been harvested to create this one warm spot in a frozen universe. The night feels eternal, as if the sun will never rise, as if this darkness is the only reality. And it is boring, so boring. And we love it. We close our own eyes in the dark. We feel the heavy air. We hear the silence. We are part of the room now. We are a piece of furniture. We are a shadow. We wait for the light, but not yet, not yet. Let the darkness hold us a little longer. Let the boredom wash over us like a heavy tide. Asleep. The night has now stretched its long, dark limbs into the territory of the early morning, though the sun is still hours from the horizon. This is the hour known in the monastic orders as matins, the time of the first prayers, but in the secular stillness of the Queen's chamber, it is simply the coldest, quietest moment of existence. The castle is suspended in a profound state of suspended animation. The stone walls, having battled the freezing air for 12 hours, are now thoroughly chilled. The cold has permeated the limestone blocks, traveling inch by inch through the masonry until it reaches the inner face of the wall. If you were to touch the stone between the tapestries now, it would burn your fingertips with the intensity of ice. Inside the room, the atmosphere has changed. The heavy, soporific warmth of the evening has dissipated, replaced by a crisp, sharp stillness. The air is stratified in definitive layers. Near the ceiling, a ghost of warmth remains trapped in the timber beams. In the center of the room, the air is cool and neutral. But near the floor, a lake of cold air has formed, a silent, invisible tide that laps at the legs of the furniture. The fire in the hearth has reached a critical juncture. The mound of ash that was so carefully banked hours ago has cooled on the surface to a uniform, pale gray, resembling the surface of a dead moon. It looks extinct. There is no visible glow, no smoke, no movement. It sits in the grate, a heap of dust. But this is a deception. Deep within the center of the ash pile, buried under layers of insulation, a single core of heat remains. It is a fist-sized knot of embers, starved of oxygen but fiercely hot, waiting for the breath of life. It is the seed of the morning fire, preserved through the long night by the wisdom of the fire tender. In the antechamber, the rhythm of the night shifts. The lady-in-waiting, who has slept the light, broken sleep of a guardian, opens her eyes. There is no alarm, no bell, just the internal clock of service. She knows by the quality of the silence and the bite of the air on her nose that it is time to prepare the room for the Queen's eventual waking. She lies still for a moment, gathering the will to leave her warm nest of blankets. The room is pitch black. She listens. The silence is absolute. She sits up. The air of the antechamber is freezing. It rushes against her skin, a shock that clears the fog of sleep instantly. She reaches for her woolen wrapper, finding it in the dark by touch alone. She pulls it around her shoulders, shivering, a violent, involuntary shudder that runs down her spine. She slips her feet into her felt slippers. Scuff, scuff. She stands. She moves to the curtain that separates her alcove from the Queen's chamber. She parts it slowly. The rings are sewn directly into the fabric to prevent noise, so the movement is silent. A soft swish of heavy velvet against velvet. She steps through. The main chamber is darker than her own. The shutters are sealed tight. The curtains of the great bed are closed, a massive dark cube in the center of the room. The lady moves with the practiced stealth of a cat. She knows exactly where the floorboards creak, 3 paces from the door, 2 paces from the window, and she steps over them, her feet finding the silent patches of the rush matting. She approaches the hearth. The cold radiating from the stone floor seeps through the soles of her slippers. She kneels on the hearthstone. It is still faintly warm, a dying memory of the fire. She reaches for the iron poker. The metal is cold, sucking the heat from her hand. Now begins the slow, delicate surgery of the fire. She must revive it without waking the queen. There must be no loud clanging, no sudden roar of flame. It must be a gradual resurrection. She inserts the tip of the poker into the base of the gray ash mound. She moves it gently, prying the crust apart, crinkle, soft sift. The ash falls away, revealing the dark red eye of the ember beneath. It glows feebly in the dark, a dull, sullen cherry red. It is alive. She reaches into the fuel basket. She bypasses the large logs and the crackling twigs. She selects a handful of spills, thin shavings of pine wood curled like ribbons. She places these directly onto the exposed ember. She leans in close, her face inches from the ash. She purses her lips and blows. Woo-gio. A long, steady stream of air. The ember brightens, turning from dull red to bright orange. The heat intensifies. The pine shaving begins to smoke, a thin, white wisp that smells of resin. She blows again. Woo-gio. The orange glow spreads to the wood shaving. It curls, blackens, and then, phut, a tiny blue and yellow flame appears. It is the size of a candle flame. It dances frantically in the draft. She feeds it another shaving, then another. The flame grows, feeding on the easy fuel. The light in the room shifts from total blackness to a faint, flickering shadow play. The shadows of the andirons stretch out across the floor, long and distorted. She adds slightly larger pieces of wood, now chips of dry oak. She builds a small pyramid over the growing flame. The fire takes hold. It begins to crackle softly, snap, click. She winces, glancing at the bed. The curtains remain still. The queen sleeps on, insulated by the heavy hangings. The lady adds a small log, placing it carefully to avoid a thud. She watches it catch. The bark blisters, smokes, and ignites. The fire is saved. The room will begin to warm again, slowly, fighting back the encroaching chill. She stands up, brushing the ash from her hands. Her task is done for now. She retreats to the shadows, but she does not return to bed. She moves to the window. She cannot open it, but she places her hand against the wood of the shutter. It is freezing. Through the cracks she can hear the wind. It has changed its voice. It is no longer the deep moan of the night. It is a higher, thinner whistling sound. The wind of the dawn. Let us examine the room in this new, faint firelight. The light is weak, struggling against the gloom. It catches the edges of things. The silver rim of the wash basin glints. The gold clasp on the Book of Hours shines with a dull luster. The room looks different in this light, more mysterious, more ancient. The corners are swallowed by darkness. The ceiling beams are lost in the shadows. The room feels smaller, more intimate. The queen shifts in the bed. The sound of heavy linens moving against each other, shh-whump. She is moving from deep sleep into the lighter stages of morning rest. Her body temperature is beginning to rise, anticipating the day. Her heart rate increases slightly, but she is still deeply unconscious, lost in the final dreams of the night. Far below, in the bowels of the castle, the great organism is beginning to stir. It starts in the kitchen. The head cook is the first to rise. He sleeps on a pallet near the great ovens. He wakes, kicks off his blanket and begins the daily ritual of lighting the main fires. This is a massive undertaking, involving huge logs and great bellows. The sound of this activity is too distant to be heard clearly in the Queen's tower, but it manifests as a faint, low-frequency vibration. A dull thud as a heavy sack of flour is dropped. The clang of a dropped pot. These sounds travel through the stone skeleton of the castle, arriving in the upper chambers as mere whispers of noise, felt rather than heard. They are the heartbeat of the keep, restarting after the nightly pause. Back in the room, the temperature is beginning to stabilize. The new fire is throwing out heat. The drafts are being pulled towards the chimney with renewed vigor. The air is circulating again. The dust motes begin their dance once more, swirling in the fresh updraft. The smell of the room changes. The stale, flat scent of the dead watch is replaced by the fresh, sharp smell of burning pine and oak. It is a morning smell, energizing and clean. On the table, the wax of the extinguished candle has hardened completely. It is brittle. If you were to touch it, it would snap. The wick is buried in the white pool. It will need to be dug out and trimmed before it can be lit again. This is a task for later. For now, the fire is the only light. The page boy in the corridor has been relieved. A new guard, fresh and awake, has taken his place. The exchange was silent, a nod, a gesture. The tired boy has slunk away to the barracks, wrapped in his cloak, dreaming of porridge. The new guard stands straight. He listens to the silence. He is alert. He hears the faint crackle from the Queen's fireplace and knows the day has begun. Let us focus on the silence again. It is no longer the empty silence of the night. It is an expectant silence, a waiting silence. The world is holding its breath, waiting for the sun. In the window embrasure, the frost fern has thickened. It is now an opaque sheet of white ice covering the stone. It is a masterpiece of winter hidden behind the shutter. The Queen's breathing changes. It becomes deeper, more audible. In Alwat, she is surfacing. Her mind is drifting up from the depths of sleep, moving through layers of dreams towards the surface of consciousness. But she is not there yet. She lingers in the warm, dark place, enjoying the ultimate luxury, the refusal to wake up. The lady-in-waiting moves to the wardrobe. She opens it, creak. She selects a gown for the morning. It is a heavy woolen dress lined with fur. She lays it over a chair near the fire. The heat will warm the fabric so that when the Queen dresses, she will not feel the cold kiss of the cloth. This is the job, to anticipate the cold and defeat it, to smooth the edges of the winter. She places the stockings on the hearth fender. She places the shoes near the heat. She is building a landscape of warmth for her mistress. The fire is burning steadily now. The logs have caught fully. The flames are yellow and bright. They illuminate the tapestry of the hunting scene. The stag looks more alert in this light. The hound looks ready to run. The room is waking up. But it is still boring. There is no drama, no sudden shouting. Just the slow, methodical preparation for another day of doing nothing. The pacing is glacial. The lady moves like a sleepwalker. She folds a towel. She straightens a rug. She wipes a speck of dust from the table. Every movement is deliberate. We watch the firelight play on the ceiling. It creates patterns of light and dark that ripple like water. It is hypnotic. You could watch it for hours. Ripple, flow, ripple, flow. It is the only television of the 14th century. The cold outside is pressing hard against the walls. The sun is approaching and the temperature often drops just before dawn. The dawn chill. The castle groans again. Crack boom. A timber beam contracting. The sound is loud in the quiet room, but it is a familiar sound. The house settling its bones. The queen turns onto her stomach. She buries her face in the pillow. She is resisting the morning. She clings to the warmth. The bed is a sanctuary, a time capsule. Inside the curtains, it is still the middle of the night. The lady-in-waiting sits on the stool by the fire. She waits. There is nothing else to do. She watches the dress warm up. She watches the steam rise from the damp hem of her own skirt where the snow touched it yesterday. We wait with her. We are patient. The seconds tick by. No clock measures them. They are measured by the consumption of the wood. The log burns, the ash forms, the heat rises. The world is slow, the world is simple, the world is cold. And we are safe inside. We imagine the village outside the castle walls, the peasants waking up in their huts, breaking the ice on the water bucket, the smoke rising from 100 thatch roofs, vertical gray columns in the still air, the cows lowing in the byre, the beginning of the struggle. But here there is no struggle. There is only the soft friction of velvet, the smell of lavender, and the warmth of the fire. The boredom is a shield. It protects us from the harsh reality of the Middle Ages. We hide in the boredom. We wrap ourselves in it like a blanket. The fire pops again. A spark lands on the hearthstone and glows for a second before fading to black. Wink. Out. The lady picks up the poker and nudges the log. It settles deeper into the bed of coals. Crunch. The room is ready. The stage is set, but the lead actor is still asleep. And so we wait. We watch the shadows. We listen to the wind. We feel the warmth. The world is beginning to turn from black to gray. It is a slow, reluctant transformation, a leaching of color into the monochrome night. In the Queen's chamber, the change is initially felt not by sight, but by a subtle shift in the density of the shadows. The absolute opacity of the dead watch is thinning. The corners of the room are no longer voids. They are merely dark spaces where shapes can be vaguely discerned. The heavy velvet curtains covering the window, which had appeared as a solid wall of blackness, now reveal a faint, ghostly outline of light around their edges. A thin, trembling rectangle of pale gray that marks the boundary between the sanctuary and the morning. We are in the blue hour, the time of twilight before the sun actually breaches the horizon. The light outside is cool, diffuse, and shadowless. It filters through the cracks in the shutters, through the heavy weave of the curtains, and enters the room as a weak, diluted presence. It battles with the warm, orange light of the fire, creating a strange, dual atmosphere in the chamber. One side of the bedpost is illuminated by the ruddy glow of the burning oak. The other side is touched by the cold, steel gray of the dawn. The silence of the night has broken, but it has not shattered. Instead, it has been replaced by a layered tapestry of distant sound. The castle, that great stone beast, is waking up, but it wakes from the bottom up. The noises of the morning begin in the cellars and the kitchens, far below the high tower where the queen lies. If we listen with the focus of a hawk, we can hear it. A low, rhythmic thump, thump, thump. It is the sound of dough being kneaded on a massive wooden table in the bakery. 50 pounds of flour and water, pummeled by strong fists. It is a dull, heavy sound that travels through the wooden beams of the floor, vibrating the dust motes in the queen's room. Then the sound of metal, a faint, high-pitched clang. The blacksmith in the inner ward has struck his first blow of the day. He is shoeing a horse or perhaps repairing a hinge. The sound rings out sharp and clear in the frozen air, but by the time it reaches the queen's ears, wrapped in linen, wool, fur, and velvet, it is nothing more than a soft, metallic whisper. Ting. These sounds do not disturb the queen. They are the lullaby of the morning. They signify that the world is working so that she does not have to. They act as a reinforcement of her safety. The castle is operating. The guards are changing. The fires are lit. She can burrow deeper. The lady-in-waiting has been joined by a second servant, a younger girl who entered through the heavy door with the silence of a shadow. They do not speak. Conversation is forbidden while the queen rests. They communicate in a language of gestures and glances. The younger girl carries a large ewer of steaming hot water, wrapped in a thick towel to insulate it. She moves to the washing table. Let us watch the water. She pours it into the silver basin. The sound is a soft, liquid gurgle rush. Steam billows up instantly, a white cloud that catches the firelight. The water is hot, heated in the great cauldron in the kitchen and carried up 3 flights of spiral stairs. It smells of wood smoke and iron. The girl takes a small vial of rose oil and lets 3 drops fall into the water. Plip, plip, plip. The oil spreads across the surface, an iridescent film that releases a sudden, blooming scent of summer roses into the cold winter air. The steam rises and drifts towards the bed. It adds a tiny amount of humidity to the dry room. It softens the air. The ladies stand back, their hands clasped in front of them, waiting. They are statues of patience. The queen is now in the state of drowsing. She is conscious, but her eyes are closed. She is aware of the warmth of the bed, the weight of the furs, the faint smell of the fire. She is aware of the cold tip of her nose, the only part of her that is exposed to the room's air. She decides, with a slow, luxurious deliberation, to stay exactly where she is. This is the primary reason she sleeps alone. In a shared bed, this moment of morning stillness is impossible. A partner would be waking, moving, coughing, talking. There would be the inevitable friction of 2 bodies adjusting to the day. But here, in her solitary fortress, she controls the time. The sun may be rising, the castle may be waking, but her day does not begin until she opens her eyes. She owns the morning. She stretches her legs under the covers. Her feet slide against the warm linen. The movement creates a rustle, a soft shh-whump that signals to the ladies that consciousness has been achieved. But they do not move. They know the drill. This is the waking hour, a period of drift and contemplation that can last as long as the queen desires. Let us examine the light on the ceiling beams again. The fire is burning robustly now, fed by the lady-in-waiting earlier. The flames are tall and yellow. They cast shadows of the bedposts onto the ceiling. These shadows are long, dark fingers that flicker and dance. As the gray dawn light strengthens, these shadows become less defined, washing out into a general murkiness. The battle between the warm firelight and the cold daylight is shifting. Outside, the snow is revealing itself. If we could see through the shutter, we would see a world carved from sugar. The drifts in the courtyard have frozen into smooth, undulating waves. The icicles hanging from the eaves are 6 feet long, thick as spears, glittering with a deadly beauty. A flock of crows has gathered on the castle wall. They are black silhouettes against the gray sky. They sit motionless, feathers puffed out against the cold. Occasionally, one gives a low caw, a harsh, raspy sound that carries for miles. Inside, the temperature of the room is slowly rising, but it is still cold enough that breath would mist. The fire is doing its best, creating a zone of warmth that extends perhaps 6 feet from the hearth. Beyond that, the winter holds dominion. The tapestries on the walls are cold to the touch. The floor is freezing. The younger servant girl shifts her weight from one foot to the other. The floor is hard. Her shoes are thin. She longs to move closer to the fire, but she holds her station. She fixes her eyes on a knot in the wood of the door and meditates on it. It is a swirl of dark grain like a whirlpool. She traces the lines with her eyes, round and round. It is a way to pass the time. The queen turns onto her back. She sighs. It is a heavy, contented sigh. She opens her eyes. For the first time in 7 parts, we see the room through her eyes. Above her hangs the canopy of the bed. It is made of damask, woven with a pattern of stars. In the dim light, the stars are faint, dull gold against a dark blue background. It is a false sky, a heaven of silk that protects her from the drafty reality of the ceiling. She stares at a single embroidered star. She counts the stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. She listens to the fire. Snap, hiss. She listens to the wind. Whoosh. She listens to the silence of the room against the noise of the castle. She is in no hurry. The concept of hurry does not exist in this room. The kingdom can wait. The petitions can wait. The prayers can wait. She pulls her hand out from the covers. The air hits her skin like a splash of cold water. She looks at her hand in the semi-darkness. Pale skin, long fingers. She rotates her wrist slowly. She watches the tendons move. It is a slow, biological study. She puts her hand back under the covers. The warmth rushes back over it. The contrast is exquisite. This is the texture of boredom. It is tactile. It is the feeling of heat returning to a cold limb. It is the feeling of the heavy wool pressing down. It is the feeling of time stretching out, elastic and slow. On the table, the Book of Hours is waiting. The light is now just strong enough to read by if one were so inclined. But no one is. The book remains shut. The older lady-in-waiting steps forward very slowly. She approaches the bed. She stops 3 feet away. She does not speak. She waits for a signal. The queen gives a tiny nod. The lady reaches out and pulls the bed curtain back another 6 inches. The metal rings slide on the rod, clink slide. A bar of gray morning light falls across the bed. It illuminates the fur coverlet, revealing the individual hairs of the pelt. It is a mix of brown and gray wolf fur, thick and coarse. The queen blinks against the light. It is not bright, but after the darkness of the canopy, it feels sharp. She closes her eyes again. She basks in the mix of fire warmth and morning cool. The smell of the breakfast porridge is now drifting up the stairwell. Oats boiled in milk with salt. It is a humble, earthy smell. It mixes with the rose water and the wood smoke. It is the smell of sustenance. The queen's stomach gives a faint rumble, grrr. It is a small, internal reminder of the body's needs. But still, she lies there. The anticipation of the meal is better than the meal itself. The anticipation of rising is better than rising. We drift back to the window. The frost fern on the inside of the glass, if there were glass, or the stone sill is beginning to lose its definition. The slight rise in temperature from the morning sun, even though hidden by clouds, is softening the ice. The sharp, crystalline edges are rounding. Soon, it will weep a single tear of water down the wall. The draft under the door has changed direction. The opening of the main doors of the keep downstairs has altered the air pressure in the building. The air now flows out of the room, pulling the smoke from the fire towards the door for a brief moment before the chimney draws it back up. The flame flickers, confused by the changing currents. Flutter, flutter. Then it steadies. The younger servant moves to the chest at the foot of the bed. She opens it to retrieve a shawl. The hinges of the chest are stiff with cold. They emit a low groan, creak. The sound is loud. The girl freezes, looking terrified. The queen does not react. She is floating in the zone between wakefulness and sleep, where sounds are just abstract vibrations. The girl retrieves the shawl, a knitted wool triangle, soft and white. She closes the chest. Thump. The room is slowly, painfully slowly, transitioning from a place of sleep to a place of waking. But the transition is so gradual it is almost imperceptible. It is like watching a flower open. You cannot see the movement, but if you look away and look back, it has changed. The light is now steel gray. The colors of the tapestries are returning. The green of the forest scene is visible. The red of the hunter's cloak is visible. The room is reclaiming its form. But the boredom remains. The beautiful, heavy boredom. There is no stimulation, no flashing screens, no urgent notifications, just the gray light, the yellow fire, and the silent women. The queen wiggles her toes. She pushes them against the bottom of the bed, searching for a cool spot in the mattress. She finds one. The coolness is refreshing. Then she retracts her feet back into the warmth. It is a game of thermal regulation. She thinks of the day ahead, a mass in the chapel, a meeting with the steward, needlework, reading. It is a schedule of quiet, repetitive tasks. Her life is a ritual. And this morning lying in is the most sacred part of that ritual. The wolf in the forest has stopped howling. It has found a den, or it is sleeping in the snow. The night predators are retiring. The day animals are stirring. In the courtyard, the chickens are being let out. We can't hear them, but we know they are there. Pecking at the snow, looking for non-existent grain, puffed up like balls of feathers. The castle bell rings. Gong. It is far away, muffled by the stone, but it is a definitive marker of time. Prime. The first hour of the day. The vibration of the bell hangs in the air for a long time. Hum. The queen opens her eyes again. She looks at the fire. She looks at the gray window. She looks at the servant holding the towel. She stays in bed. She is not ready. The world is too cold. The bed is too warm. She pulls the coverlet up to her chin. She turns on her side, facing the fire. She watches the flames consume the oak log. The wood is turning black, cracking into squares like alligator skin. The fire is eating. We watch the fire with her. We are mesmerized. The orange light pulses. The gray light stays static. The room is a painting of stillness. We breathe in the lavender. We breathe in the smoke. We are part 7 and we are still here. Safe, warm, bored. The morning can wait. The sun can wait. History can wait. For now, there is only the bed. The sun has now fully risen, though in this season and at this latitude, risen is perhaps too strong a word. Rather, the sun has dragged itself reluctantly above the tree line, a pale, watery disk of white gold hanging low in the southern sky. It offers little heat, but it changes the character of the queen's chamber entirely. The mysterious, shadowy cave of the night has been replaced by a room of defined edges and cool, truthful light. The gray of the dawn has bleached out into the stark, clinical white of a winter morning. The light enters through the cracks in the shutters with more authority now. It creates distinct beams that cut through the smoky air of the room, illuminating the floating dust in microscopic detail. We can see the individual fibers of wool and linen drifting in the currents, a galaxy of domestic debris turning slowly in the shaft of sun. Where the beams hit the floor, they highlight the texture of the rush mats, the dry, yellow stalks, the woven pattern, the occasional dried flower petal that has escaped the broom. The queen is awake. She is propped up against a mountain of pillows, 4 of them, stacked with architectural precision by the ladies-in-waiting. She is sitting in what is known as the state of repose. She is vertical, but she is not yet part of the world. She remains within the boundaries of the bed, the heavy velvet curtains pulled back just enough to create a proscenium arch through which she views her chamber. It is time for the breaking of the fast. This is a solemn ritual performed in silence. The heavy oak door opens, creak, and a procession of 1 enters. It is a page, distinct from the night guard, carrying a wooden tray. He moves with exaggerated care, his eyes fixed on the contents of the tray, his tongue slightly protruding in concentration. He wears felt overshoes to dampen his footsteps. Soft thud, soft thud. He approaches the bedside table. The lady-in-waiting intercepts him. She takes the tray. The transfer is silent. The page bows low, a folding of fabric and limb, and retreats backward, closing the door with a practiced hush. The tray is placed on the table. Let us examine it. It is made of polished walnut, dark and rich. On it sits a bowl of pewter, a spoon of silver, and a small loaf of bread on a wooden platter. There is also a goblet of weak ale, the standard morning beverage, safer than water and warming to the blood. The smell of the food drifts into the bed space. It is the scent of oats, cooked slowly over a low fire until they have broken down into a creamy, glutinous mass. It smells of salt and faint yeast. It is a primal smell, the smell of survival in a cold climate. The queen shifts. The heavy fur coverlet slides down to her waist. Immediately, the cooler air of the room embraces her upper body. It is not freezing. The fire has done its work, but it is a brisk change from the tropical heat of the mattress. The lady-in-waiting is there instantly, draping a heavy woolen shawl dyed a deep indigo around the queen's shoulders. The wool is warm, having been held near the fire for the last 10 minutes. The queen pulls it tight, creating a new, mobile layer of insulation. She reaches for the bowl. The pewter is warm to the touch, having absorbed the heat of the porridge. She holds it in both hands for a moment, using it as a hand warmer. The heat transfers into her palms, a pleasant, stinging sensation that wakes the nerves. She picks up the silver spoon. It is cold. The metal is shocked by the heat of the porridge as she dips it in. Slurp. She stirs the oats. The texture is thick, heavy, and gray. This is not the sugary, refined oatmeal of a later age. This is pottage, a staple fuel. It is dense. It steams vigorously, the white vapor rising in a column that disperses as it hits the cooler air near the canopy. She lifts the spoon to her lips. She blows on it. Whoosh, whoosh. The steam swirls. She takes the first bite. It is hot. It coats the mouth. It tastes of grain and salt. There is no sugar, perhaps a drizzle of honey if the stores are good, but today it is plain. It is warm ballast for the stomach. She swallows. We can almost feel the heat traveling down the esophagus, a warm pill descending into the core of the body. She eats slowly. There is no rush. The spoon clicks softly against the pewter bowl. Click, scrape. She looks at the fire while she chews. The fire is now a mature blaze, a bed of red coals supporting 3 sturdy logs that burn with a steady, low roar. The flames are less frantic than the kindling fire of the early morning. They are settled, confident flames. She takes a piece of bread. It is a manchet loaf made of fine wheat flour, round and crusty. She breaks it. Crackle. The sound of the crust breaking is loud in the quiet room. Crumbs fall onto the fur coverlet. She does not brush them away. That is a problem for later. She dips the bread into the porridge. The dry crumb absorbs the liquid, softening, swelling. She eats the sop. The lady-in-waiting stands by the fire, her back to the queen, allowing her mistress the privacy of eating. The lady is checking the drying linen. A chemise hangs over a wooden rack. She touches it to check for dampness. It is dry and warm. She folds it in her mind, planning the sequence of the dressing ritual that is to come. Outside, the wind has picked up again. It is buffeting the tower. We hear it as a low, dull thudding against the stone, like a heavy shoulder barging against a door. Thud, thud. The window shutters rattle slightly in their frames, rattle-clack, a wooden sound that speaks of the force of the air. The queen looks at the window. She cannot see the wind, but she can hear its cold intent. It makes the porridge taste better. It makes the shawl feel softer. She drinks from the goblet. The ale is room temperature, which is to say, cool. It is sour and thin. It washes down the heavy oats. She sets the goblet back on the tray. Clink. The meal is finished. It was not a feast. It was a fueling. She pushes the tray away slightly. The lady-in-waiting hears the movement and turns. She approaches, takes the tray, and sets it on a side table to be collected later. Now begins the transition, the movement from the horizontal world to the vertical. It is the most difficult part of the day. To leave the bed is to accept the cold. The queen sits on the edge of the mattress. Her feet dangle above the floor. She is wearing thick woolen socks that were put on her feet before she slept, but the floor is still a threat. The lady-in-waiting brings the slippers. They are lined with rabbit fur. She places them on the step of the dais. The queen slides off the high mattress. Her feet find the slippers. Slide, slide, she stands up. The height of the room becomes apparent. Standing, she is a small figure in a large stone cylinder. The ceiling beams seem higher. The shadows retreat. She wraps the indigo shawl tighter, crossing her arms over her chest. The air in the center of the room is decidedly brisk. She can see her breath, a faint mist that appears with every exhalation. Haya, haya. She walks to the fire. This is the magnetic north of the room. Every living thing gravitates towards it. She stands on the hearthstone, her back to the flames. She lifts the back of her heavy robe slightly to let the heat warm her legs. She closes her eyes and bathes in the thermal radiation. The heat hits the heavy wool of her nightrobe and slowly penetrates to the skin. It is a slow bake. Her calves warm up first, then her thighs, then her lower back. It is a feeling of immense relief. The tension of the cold leaves her muscles. She relaxes. She stands there for a long time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, doing nothing, just absorbing heat. The ladies in waiting stand nearby, also soaking up the warmth. It is a communal worship of the fire. There is no conversation. What is there to say? It is cold. Yes, it is. The fire is good. Yes, it is. The facts are self-evident. Silence is more efficient. The queen looks at the tapestry on the wall opposite the fire. It depicts the story of Esther. The figures are stiff and stylized. She looks at the hem of Esther's dress. She notices a loose thread. She stares at it. It vibrates slightly in the draft. She wonders if she should ask someone to fix it. She decides against it. It requires too much words. She continues to stare. The sun moves across the floor. The patch of light shifts from the rush mat to the leg of the table. It is a slow, creeping movement, the sundial of the room. We watch the light cross a single flagstone. It takes 20 minutes. The lady in waiting brings the basin of water closer to the fire. It is time for the washing. The water has cooled slightly, so she adds a splash from a hot ewer kept on the hob. The temperature is corrected. The queen steps away from the fire. She removes the shawl. She unties the neck of her nightrobe. The air touches her neck. She shivers once. She leans over the basin. The lady dips a sponge, a natural sea sponge, brown and porous, into the rose water. She squeezes it out, squelch, drip. She wipes the queen's face. The sponge is rough but warm. It scrubs away the sleep. Forehead, cheeks, chin. Then the hands. The queen submerges her hands in the water. The water turns grayish with the soot and dust that accumulates even in a royal chamber. The heat penetrates the knuckles. It loosens the joints. She flexes her fingers underwater. It looks like a strange sea creature moving in a silver pond. The drying is done with a linen towel that has been toasted by the fire. It is rough linen, absorbent and invigorating. The friction warms the skin. Rub, rub, rub. The skin turns pink. The nightrobe is removed. For a brief, terrible second, the queen stands in her shift, exposed to the air. The cold attacks, but the ladies are fast. The warmed day shift is dropped over her head. It falls like a white tent. Then the undergown of wool. Then the overgown of velvet. Layer by layer, she is armored against the winter. Each layer adds weight. The linen weighs a pound. The wool weighs 3. The velvet weighs 10. The furs weigh another 5. By the time she is dressed, she is carrying 20 pounds of fabric. She becomes a heavy, solid object anchored to the floor. The final touch is the headrail, a delicate veil of silk pinned to a stiff linen band. The lady adjusts it, pin, tuck, pin. The queen stands still, her head bowed slightly. She stares at the floor rushes. She sees a beetle navigating the terrain of the herbs. It climbs over a stem of lavender. It falls off. It climbs again. She watches it with intense interest. It is the most dramatic thing that has happened all morning. She is dressed, but she does not leave the room. To leave the room is to enter the public sphere. To deal with the steward, the chaplain, the petitioners, she is not ready. She moves to the chair by the fire, the high-backed chair. She sits. The velvet cushion compresses. The wood creaks. She arranges her skirts around her, creating a seal against the draft. She places her feet on a foot warmer, a wooden box containing a tray of hot coals. The heat radiates up through the soles of her shoes. It is divine. She signals to the lady. The lady brings the Book of Hours. She places it on the reading stand. She opens it to the morning prayer. The pages are stiff. The illuminations are bright in the daylight. Blue lapis lazuli, red vermilion, gold leaf. The queen looks at the picture. It shows a peasant sowing grain in the winter. She looks at the painted snow. It looks cold. She looks at the real snow outside. It looks colder. She does not read. She just looks at the letters. The black ink is shiny. The parchment is creamy. She traces the shape of a capital D with her eyes. The room has reached a state of equilibrium. The fire is burning at a steady rate. The sun is shining at a steady angle. The temperature is stable. The queen is installed in her chair. The castle noises are a constant hum now. The sound of a saw cutting wood. Zzzzzt. The sound of a cart rolling over cobblestones in the courtyard. Rumble clatter. But the walls of the tower filter it all out, turning it into a soothing white noise. The queen picks up her embroidery frame. She is working on a cushion cover, a pattern of lilies. She pushes the needle through the fabric, pop. She pulls the thread through, swish. She pushes it back down, pop. She does this 3 times, then she stops. She rests her hands on the frame. She looks at the fire. She is bored. She is warm. She is safe. She thinks about the summer. She tries to remember the smell of hot grass. It is a distant memory. The reality is only this room, this fire, this snow. A draft catches the smoke in the chimney and blows a small puff back into the room. The smell of wood smoke intensifies for a moment. It stings the eyes slightly. Then it clears. The queen blinks. She takes a deep breath. The morning stretches out before her, an ocean of time, hours and hours of this. She picks up the needle again. Pop it. Swish it. Pop it. The rhythm is hypnotic. It matches the beating of her heart. It matches the ticking of the cooling embers. She is a queen in a tower, suspended in the amber of a winter morning. And nothing happens. Absolutely nothing. The sun has reached its zenith. a term that implies height and power, but in this frozen season it signifies only that the pale disk in the sky has dragged itself to the top of the southern tree line. It hangs there, weak and distant, casting long, melancholy shadows even at midday. In the Queen's chamber, the light has shifted from the clinical white of the morning to a clearer, sharper quality. The dust motes have settled. The air is still. The room has achieved a thermal equilibrium, a steady state of warmth maintained by the relentless consumption of oak logs. It is the hour of none, the 9th hour of the day, traditionally the time of the midday meal. In the medieval world, this is the main event of the waking hours, the anchor around which the day pivots. But here, in the secluded tower, it is a quiet, solitary ritual. The heavy door opens with its familiar, well-oiled groan, thunk. The procession enters. It is the steward this time, accompanied by 2 pages. The steward is a man of hushed tones and soft shoes. He bows. The pages bow. They carry a small table, unfolded with a series of wooden clacks and placed near the fire, but not so close that the heat would wilt the food. A white linen cloth is spread over the wood. It is damask, woven with a pattern of vines that is visible only when the light hits it at a certain angle. The cloth is crisp. It holds the fold lines from the press. The steward smooths it with a gloved hand. Swish, swish. The meal is laid out. It is a study in brown and gold, the colors of winter comfort. There is a trencher of stale bread carved into a square plate. On it sits a slice of roasted venison, dark and lean, swimming in a rich, dark gravy thickened with breadcrumbs and spices. The steam rises from the meat in a thick, savory cloud, carrying the scent of cloves, cinnamon, and red wine. It is a heavy, intoxicating smell that fills the room, masking the scent of the lavender and the wood smoke. Beside the meat, a bowl of stewed parsnips and carrots. They are soft, glistening with butter. They are the roots of the earth, dug from the frozen ground, sweetened by the frost. And a small cup of custard, yellow and trembling, dusted with nutmeg. The Queen moves from her high-backed chair to the stool by the table. The movement is stiff. The layers of velvet and wool make bending difficult. She sits. The fabric of her gown settles around her like a collapsing tent, rustle, flump. She picks up her knife. It is small, with a handle of mother-of-pearl that feels cool and smooth in her palm. She cuts a piece of the venison. The meat is tender, it falls apart under the blade. She spears it. She lifts it. She eats. The taste is intense. Gamey, rich, warming. It is the taste of the forest. The gravy coats her tongue. It is heavy food designed to fuel the body against the cold. It induces a feeling of immediate, heavy satisfaction. The body's energy redirects from the brain to the stomach. The meat lethargy begins to set in. She eats the parsnips. They are sweet and soft, requiring little chewing. Squish. They melt in the mouth. She eats the bread trencher last, or part of it. It has soaked up the gravy, becoming a savory sponge. It is the best part of the meal. Salty, wine-soaked bread. She drinks a cup of wine, watered down and spiced. It is warmer than the ale of the morning. It flushes the cheeks. The meal takes 20 minutes. It is a slow, deliberate consumption of calories. The steward watches from the shadows, invisible and silent. When she places the knife down, clink, he steps forward. The table is cleared. The cloth is folded. The procession exits. The door closes. The bolt slides home. Now comes the long afternoon, the white hours. The queen returns to her chair by the fire. The digestion of the heavy meal combined with the heat of the fire creates a powerful soporific effect. Her eyelids feel heavy, as if small weights have been sewn into the lashes. The room seems to tilt slightly. She does not sleep, but she enters a state of waking trance. She stares at the fire. The logs have burned down to a chaotic architecture of glowing charcoal cliffs and canyons. She watches a small blue flame dance on the tip of a charred branch. It flickers, disappears, reappears. It is a tiny struggle for existence. The wind outside has dropped. The silence returns, but it is different now. It is the silence of the afternoon, flat and bright. The sun, having peaked, begins its swift descent. In winter, the afternoon is short. The light begins to fail almost as soon as it has arrived. The queen picks up a small object from the table. It is a pomander, a ball of gold filigree containing a mixture of ambergris, musk, and cloves. She rolls it between her hands. The metal warms up. The scent is released, spicy and exotic. She holds it to her nose and inhales. Sniff. It is a sharp, clearing scent that cuts through the heaviness of the room. She looks at the window. The light on the stone floor is changing color. It is turning from white to a pale, bruised peach. The sun is touching the horizon. It is only 3 o'clock. She decides to move. She needs to see the world. She stands up, the heavy skirts swaying. She walks to the window embrasure. She steps up onto the stone step so she can see over the high sill. The world outside is a painting of blue and white. The snow in the courtyard is untouched in the center, a pristine field of white. Around the edges, where the servants have walked, there are packed trails of gray ice. The shadows of the castle walls are stretching out, engulfing the courtyard. They are long, blue fingers reaching for the forest. She sees a guard walking the perimeter. He is a small, dark figure against the snow. He walks with his head down, huddled in his cloak. He leaves a trail of footprints. Step, step, step. She watches him until he disappears around the corner of the keep. She looks at the forest beyond the walls. It is a wall of black trees. It looks inhospitable. It looks dead. But she knows there is life there. Deer, boars, wolves. They are out there in the cold. She shivers, not from the temperature, but from the thought of the exposure. She turns back to the room. The contrast is visceral. The room is a golden cave. The fire is a captive sun. The tapestries are warm cliffs. It is a contained universe of safety. She returns to the chair. She picks up the Book of Hours again. She turns a page. The parchment crinkles loudly, crinkle pop. She looks at a psalm. De profundis clamavi. Out of the depths I have cried. She reads the first line. Then she stops. The letters seem to float on the page. The lady-in-waiting approaches. She carries a long taper lit from the fire. It is time to light the first candle. The sun is not gone, but the gloom is gathering in the corners. The lady moves to the tall iron stand near the door. She touches the taper to the thick beeswax candle. FZZZT. The wick catches. A yellow flame blooms. It is small, struggling against the daylight, but it adds a point of warmth to the far side of the room. She lights another candle near the wardrobe, and one more on the table next to the queen. 3 stars in the room. The atmosphere changes. The cozy factor intensifies. The mixing of the dying daylight and the rising candlelight creates a soft, hazy illumination. The edges of the furniture blur. The room feels smaller, tighter, warmer. The queen feels the boredom pressing in. It is a physical sensation, a heaviness in the limbs, but it is a pleasant boredom. It is the boredom of having no needs. She is fed. She is warm. She is safe. She is rich. She looks at her hands. She inspects her fingernails. They are smooth and oval. She pushes back a cuticle with her thumb. She examines a small callus on her index finger from the needle. It is a tiny imperfection. She rubs it. The fire gives a loud crack and a piece of wood rolls off the andirons onto the hearthstone. It smokes there, out of place. The lady-in-waiting is there instantly with the tongs. She picks up the burning chunk, clink, and places it back into the heart of the fire. She sweeps the hearth with a small brush. Swish, swish, swish. The rhythm of the brush on the stone is soothing. The queen closes her eyes. She listens to the brush. She listens to the fire. She thinks about the summer again. She tries to remember the sound of bees, but the winter silence is too strong. It erases the memory of summer. The light in the window is fading fast now. The peach color has turned to a deep, dusky violet. The blue hour returns. The cycle is closing. The room feels timeless. It could be yesterday, it could be tomorrow, it is just winter. The queen picks up her embroidery again. She does not sew, she just holds the frame. She runs her hand over the textured surface of the thread. Rough wool, smooth silk. It is a tactile map. As she waits. For what? For the night, for the sleep, for the end of the day. It is a slow, delicious waiting, a waiting without anxiety. The candle flame on the table flickers. A draft has found it. The queen watches the shadow of the candle lengthen and shorten on the wall. It breathes. The day is dying. The castle is settling in for another long night. The gates are being barred down below. The drawbridge is being raised. Creak, clank, thud. The sound vibrates faintly through the floor. The shell is closed. The queen is a pearl inside the shell. She sighs, a long exhaling breath that releases the day. She is ready for the darkness to return. She is ready for the silence to deepen. She leans her head back against the velvet chair. The fabric is soft against her cheek. She watches the window turn from violet to black. The glassless square becomes a mirror of the night. The wheel of the day has turned its full circle. We have returned to the kingdom of the night, to the domain of shadows and silence where we began. The window, which for a few brief hours held the gray promise of the world, has returned to being a solid square of absolute blackness. The shutters have been barred again. The iron latch dropped into its cradle with a heavy, final clunk. The velvet curtains have been drawn, their heavy folds meeting in the center to seal the room against the universe. The queen's chamber is once again a capsule, floating in the dark, untethered from time and space. The atmosphere in the room is now thick and rich, like a reduced sauce. It is composed of the day's wood smoke, the lingering scent of the roasted venison, the floral notes of the rosewater, and the beeswax of the dying candles. It is a heavy air, air that wants to sit still, air that resists movement. It presses against the skin, a warm, invisible blanket. The fire has been built up for the long burn. 3 massive logs, the trunks of old oak trees, have been maneuvered into the grate. They are not blazing with the frantic energy of the morning kindling. They are burning with a deep, resentment heat. The flames are short, blue at the base and dark orange at the tips, licking the wood with a slow, consuming hunger. The center of the fire is a pulsing cave of magma-red coals, a source of radiant heat that travels across the floor, warming the rushes, warming the wood, warming the air. It is time for the final ritual, the rite of the bed. The queen sits in her chair, but her posture has changed. She is slumped, her body yielding to the pull of the earth. The heavy velvet gown, which has served as her armor throughout the day, now feels like a burden. The weight of the fabric pulls on her shoulders. She is ready to shed the persona of the monarch and return to the simple biological reality of the sleeper. The ladies in waiting move with a synchronized slowness. There is no need for verbal commands. They know the dance. One moves to the wardrobe to retrieve the night trail. The other approaches the fire to prepare the bed warmer. Let us focus on the bed warmer. It is a beautiful, functional object, a pan of polished brass with a perforated lid attached to a long handle of turned ash wood. The lady opens the lid hinge squeak, and using the iron tongs she selects the reddest, hottest coals from the heart of the fire. She drops them into the pan. Clink, hiss. The coals sizzle as they hit the metal. She closes the lid, snap. She moves to the bed. She pulls back the heavy coverlet and the wool blankets, exposing the bottom sheet of pure linen. She slides the brass pan between the sheets, swish. She moves it up and down, a slow, ironing motion. The brass glides over the fabric. The heat transfers instantly. The smell of toasted linen rises from the bed, a dry, clean, comforting scent that is the very essence of safety. She warms the foot of the bed. She warms the center. She warms the pillow. The bed is being charged with thermal energy. It is no longer just a piece of furniture. It is a battery of warmth. Meanwhile, the queen is being unmade. The heavy gold chain is removed from her neck, clink, and placed in a box. The rings are slid from her fingers, slip, and placed on the velvet lining of the jewel case. The weight diminishes. The headdress is unpinned, the veil is lifted. The linen band is untied. The queen shakes her head. Her hair, confined all day, falls loose. It is heavy and dark. The brushing begins. 100 strokes. This is not for vanity, it is for sedation. The lady stands behind the chair. She draws the brush through the hair. Sound of bristles on hair, shhhhhh. She starts at the scalp and moves to the tips. shhhhhh. 1, 2, 3. The rhythm is metronomic. The sensation on the scalp is a massage. The tension in the neck muscles releases. The queen's head droops forward slightly. Her eyes close. She listens to the sound of the brush. It is the sound of the day being smoothed away. 45, 46. The room is so quiet you can hear the static electricity crackling in the hair. Snap, crackle. The brushing ends. The hair is braided loosely for the night. A simple plait tied with a ribbon. Now the dress. The laces at the back are loosened. The velvet gown is peeled away, heavy and stiff. It stands up by itself on the floor for a moment before collapsing into a pool of dark fabric. The wool undergown is removed. The day shift is removed. The transition. The cold air of the room touches the skin for 10 seconds. It is a necessary shock, a reminder of the hostile environment that exists outside the fire's reach. Then the night trail. It is made of flannel, soft and brushed. It has been warming by the fire. It is dropped over the queen's head. It falls like a warm cloud. She pushes her arms through the sleeves. The fabric is instantly comforting. It doesn't constrict, it flows. She stands up. She steps out of her shoes. Her feet in their wool stockings sink into the rushes. She walks to the bed. The bed is waiting. It is a mountain of soft topography. The lady has finished the warming. She withdraws the pan, slide clink, and hangs it by the fire. The sheets are now hot to the touch. The queen climbs the wooden steps. 1, 2. She sits on the edge of the mattress. It sinks under her weight, a slow, pneumatic compression of goose down. She swings her legs up. She slides down between the sheets. The sensation is overwhelming. The heat surrounds her instantly. It is not just warm, it is hot. The linen is crisp but heated. The wool blankets press down with a reassuring heaviness. The fur coverlet is pulled up. The weight is substantial, perhaps 20 pounds of bedding pressing her into the mattress. It triggers a primal feeling of being held, of being hidden. She wriggles her toes, seeking the hottest spot where the warming pan rested longest. She finds it. A sigh escapes her. Ha! It is the sound of total surrender. The ladies in waiting begin the final retreat. The room must be returned to darkness. They move to the candles. The candle by the wardrobe, puff, a thin line of gray smoke. The candle by the table, puff. The light drops by half. The candle by the door, puff. The room is now lit only by the fire. The red glow reclaims the space. The shadows leap out from the corners, large and soft. They cover the tapestries. The figures in the weaving, the hunters, the saints, the animals, fade into the gloom. They are sleeping too. The senior lady approaches the bed one last time. She holds the edge of the heavy brocade curtain. She looks at the queen. The queen is a small shape under the mound of furs. Only her face is visible, pale in the firelight. Her eyes are closed. She is already drifting. The lady pulls the curtain. The metal rings roll on the rod. Ar-rar-rar-rar-rar-rar click. The curtain meets the post. The bed is sealed. Inside the canopy, it is pitch black. The queen is now in her private box, a room within a room within a tower within a castle. The air inside the curtains is still and rapidly warming with her body heat. It smells of the lavender sachets and the hot linen. It is a sensory deprivation tank of the 14th century. The ladies leave. We hear their footsteps on the rushes, soft crunch, soft crunch. We hear the heavy door open, groan. We hear them step out into the cold corridor. We hear the door close, thump. We hear the iron bolt slide home, clack slide thunk. A silence. The queen is alone. This is why she sleeps alone. Listen to the silence. There is no breathing but her own. There is no movement but the settling of the feathers. There is no heat thief. The warmth she generates stays with her. She owns the dark, she owns the bed, she owns the quiet. In the vast, freezing night of the Middle Ages, this solitude is the ultimate wealth. While the knights in the hall sleep shoulder to shoulder, snoring and shifting, and the peasants in the village huddle with their livestock for warmth, the queen floats in a void of personal space. She turns onto her side. The bedding rustles, a dry, whispery sound. She pulls the sheet up over her ear. Now she hears the sound of her own blood pumping. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. It is the rhythm of life, loud and steady. Outside the heavy curtains, the fire continues its work. The logs settle, crackle, a piece of charcoal falls. Tink. These are the sounds of companionship. The fire is watching over the room. Outside the stone walls, the snow has begun to fall again. It is a heavy, silent snow. It fills the arrow slits. It covers the courtyard tracks. It weighs down the branches of the pines in the forest. It muffles the world. The castle is being buried in white. The queen's thoughts begin to fragment, the embroidery pattern, lilies, green thread, the taste of the venison, cloves, the look of the snow, blue shadows, the warmth, so warm. The thoughts detach from each other. They float away like boats on a dark river. She sinks deeper. The mattress holds her. The darkness holds her. A wolf howls miles away. It is so faint it might be a dream. It is a thin, silver thread of sound that weaves through the night and vanishes. It does not frighten her. It only emphasizes her safety. The wolf is out there in the cold. She is in here in the warmth. The barrier holds. The boredom of the day, the monotony of the hours, the slowness of the time, it all culminates in this. A mind that is empty, a body that is relaxed, a spirit that is calm. There is no anxiety. There is no tomorrow. There is only this eternal, warm now. The fire dims. The red glow on the ceiling fades to a dull brown. The room cools ever so slightly, but the bed remains a furnace. The queen sleeps. Her breathing is slow and deep. In, out, in, out. She has achieved the perfect sleep. A sleep without dreams, a sleep of stone and wool. The castle stands firm against the winter. The stones do not move. The timbers do not break. The night wraps around the tower like a dark ocean. We float in the darkness with her. We are nothing. We are nowhere. We are simply warm. The snow falls. The fire burns. The silence reigns. And so it goes, hour after hour, until the wheel turns again. But we will not be here for that. We leave her here in the heart of the winter, in the heart of the keep, safe, alone, and perfectly, beautifully bored. Asleep.